Welcome to the Reclaimability Podcast. This episode puts a relationship between our nervous system and our brain's superpower, our thinking brain, on center stage. By taking a closer look at them, we can gain insight into how we actually function, regardless of any situation. The mainstream narrative around the nervous system is that it's something that needs to be calmed down or relaxed. Mindfulness is hyper-focused and marketed on these ideas, and many clinical approaches are focused on changing the way we think as a way to calm down or relax. We'll dive deeper into that kind of topic in a future episode. All creatures have the same mechanics for the most part. Evolutionary psychology has overgeneralized this understanding by posing that we as humans have developed new additions to old parts, like adding a turbo to a car or an air conditioning system. Triune brain theory is a perfect example of this, describing three parts of our brain that have grown as we grew into the species. You may have heard of the reptilian or the lizard brain, then the mammalian brain or the emotional brain, and then finally the human brain, and this great, amazing cognitive capacity thinking brain. The triune brain theory used this breakdown to categorize human responses according to the evolutionary adaptation. Like when something happens, our reptilian brain takes over, or our mammalian or emotional brain takes over, etc. This has long been debunked, in part due to the recognized work of people like Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, most known for her work on the book How Emotions Are Made. But its simplicity still makes it a popular analogy, despite its inaccuracies. The problem with this, and we're going to discuss, is that the more we sort of pare down and simplify things, actually the more nuance that we lose. And it's that nuance that's the gold for us to be able to understand what's going on with us and to empower us to make change. So what is more accurate is that living organisms have optimized performance on parts of their brain that best align with their abilities, and not just their brain, but their entire biophysiology. An example of this is the chameleon. A chameleon is a superpower of changing its color to ensure survivability. It is able to do so because its body determined that doing so is a highly advantageous way to survive. So it developed its already existing capacity of creating skin color so that it made multiple options to choose from. These are known as melanophore cells, which are generated by the neural crest in a chameleon. Humans also have a neural crest, which also is responsible for producing cells that provide color in the form of pigmentation. But these are known as melanocyte cells. Generated in the neural crest, but it only has the capacity to produce one type. The human superpower, on the other hand, is our supercharged thinking brain. We have this amazing capacity to consciously and actually subconsciously use previous experience with present information and to run through scenarios in anticipation of the future. This is an incredible survival skill, as it enables us to move from reactive living to more predictive living. But there are many costs to this as well. One of which is that the amount of energy required to run these great thinking skills is highly inefficient. At rest, meaning if we're thinking about nothing, which is completely impossible, but if we were simply only chewing on things that are just keeping us running, our brain uses about 20% of our body's energy, which is an incredibly inefficient amount of energy to use when you consider the size of the brain versus the rest of the body and its function. The other problem is that the thinking requires time. In survival, time and energy are key factors to success. Cognition requires time and energy, and a lot of it. The greater our capacity to think, the longer and more energy demanding thinking is. So our brains work hard to create shortcuts to answers. Our superpower is constantly seeking out efficiency, meaning that our brain continuously assesses situations, seeks out solutions, and then cuts away the clutter in anticipation of similar situations so that it can react quicker next time. The problem is that we become fixated on having answers. So if you look at the way we function, we kind of want to cut away all of the other stuff and just get to the bottom line. What is the actual answer? And it's the cutting through the clutter that actually causes our issues. Because what ends up happening is the nuance, the curiosity, the information that's lost in the decision-making process are things that enable us to have nuance, to see similar situations differently. We lose those capacities and we just go to this solution was close enough to the last situation, so we're going to use this solution to solve this as well. And herein lies the problem where it comes to our nervous system. Our nervous system is designed to identify anything that interferes with our organism's primary function for living. For simplicity's sake, let's just say our primary functions as an organism are quite simply to eat, poop, and sleep. Anything needed beyond that is a demand for energy to overcome so we can focus our energy back to eating, pooping, and sleeping, or rest, recover, and repair. Simply functioning to be able to stay alive. The systems that the function is just to be alive. The body's energy is finite, meaning it is limited. It doesn't come from the stars or from summoning the strength of someone or somewhere else. It comes from glucosamine production through our digestive system. That's it. So our bodies are operating according to the amount of energy available in them. And the nervous system has the controls when it comes to distribution of energy. Because its sole purpose is to resolve any issue that impacts our ability to, again, eat, poop, or sleep. It needs to have control so that it can survive. From an organismic perspective, there's not much need for thriving if you're dead. Why this is so important is that the nervous system responds not to a situation, but to the need to overcome something that's interfering with our primary functions. So it's easy to see that our nervous system is not sitting idle until it's triggered. It's always functioning and overcoming. When it can't overcome, the nervous system draws energy from our body in order to use it to overcome the situation. And this is known as stress. De-stress, which again, we all know because of the mainstream narrative, is hyper-focused on bad stress. But also eustress, which is healthy stress. Getting up to go put a sweater on if you're cold, studying for an exam to get your degree, learning to play an instrument, etc. These are all eustress. So it's positive stress needed in order to accomplish something, which is ultimately how post-traumatic growth works. So where does the nervous system get its energy to address stress? It only makes sense to draw it from our thinking brain. It pulls energy away from a function that requires a great deal of time and energy to use, thus saving time and energy, which are factors in survival. You will notice this happens if you talk about something that feels activating. Then for some reason you simply can't remember the name of the person or the date or the event, etc. This is an outcome of the nervous system taking energy away from your cognition so that it can overcome the stress. It has a commanding role so that it can ensure survival over thriving. What's amazing about this is that the inability to remember the name or the date then becomes a stress that your nervous system is actively trying to overcome on top of everything else. So how does the nervous system become alerted to stress? Our bodies are constantly sending data signals to our brain about everything that is happening in the moment, from temperature to digestion to environment to interactions with things and other people to animals. This data mixes with our body's Rolodex of experiences, like we mentioned earlier. And the information is compiled in the form of an image. Antonio Damasio has done some amazing work around imagery. Think of these images more like molecular compositions that are read by the nervous system. Sometimes we can see them through our conscious awareness, and sometimes we can't or don't see them accurately. Remember, our brains prune for efficiency, but our nervous system has the controls and acts in response to the image or composition. Damasio has also identified that the nervous system has no ability to differentiate between what is actually happening in real time and what is simply an image or imagined in our brain. This is why shifting our focus is so important. It changes the cluster of data that our brains are processing in the moment. It has no choice, and therefore changes the image or composition that our nervous system is reading. This is also what led me to my research and development of nervous system recalibration. Nervous system recalibration is a structured technique that uses 5 major components that the data is drawn from to send to the brain. It takes an in-the-moment inventory of how we are functioning and adjusts or recalibrates our nervous system so that it operates more appropriately for the present environment. And operating more appropriately doesn't mean being calm or relaxed. Imagine being in rush hour traffic with a nervous system that is sort of wired or set to read a book on the couch on a Sunday evening. And then also imagine trying to read a book on a Sunday evening on the couch when your nervous system is responding like you're in rush hour traffic. Both of those responses are appropriate in context of this actual situation, but they're inappropriate when they're put in the other situations. And so this is what we have the ability to do when we're using nervous system recalibration, is to adjust so that our nervous system is operating more appropriately for the current environment. In our next episode, we're going to explore BRESC, so breathing, rhythm, environment, social engagement, and curiosity, which are the 5 components to nervous system recalibration. Until then, stay curious. Unlike public institutions or nonprofit organizations, the Atlanta Group and Trauma Training Center uses membership contributions to enable innovative and independent research, publication, program development, and delivery without the bias or influence of outside investors or donators. Got a topic or question? Be part of the contribution by reaching out. We may feature it on one of our episodes. I look forward to learning, growing, and being curious with you.